I also want to know if you know of anything in the ER space that could be improved upon with AI. And I'll give you one example. It was very serendipitous, but I talked to a previous CEO of a major, very successful hospital system here in Louisiana. And he did some work and realized that one of the biggest holdups on being able to make sure that that line, at the end of the year is as green as possible because of the things we talked about in part, he found that one of the biggest holdups in the ER and keeping it overpacked, and of course, the need for people to have it to see ER and not wait forever, was a disposition by specialists.
Oh,
And a lot of times specialists can be
interesting.
hard to get a hold
Yes,
of, the cardiologist, right? Like, and you're like, yeah, bro, like you don't need to study for
absolutely.
that. I know that.
Makes perfect sense.
You just don't know if they need a bed or not. And then the bed is being held because the ER is saying, I might need it. I'm still waiting on the cardiologist, whether they're there, whether they are not there or there, and just have a whole bunch of people in front of them.
What you're saying literally happened to me 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
So it's like perfectly prescient. Sorry.
And if you think about the downstream implications of that on productivity, efficiency, cost, like revenue generation for the hospital, so we don't have to get these markups on our scans and our labs, I can't imagine how colossal it is. But I don't know if you've ever worn or tried, I'm sure you have, what am I saying, like a Vision Pro, but it's absolutely unbelievable. Like the way that you're able to assess and see things in augmented reality. And it's just mind blowing. I joke, but it kind of is better than real life because there's no obscurity from sun rays and stuff. Point being is he's finding a system to be able to leverage in a telecapacity, but not. It can even be local on having these headsets to be able to quickly look through the
So
EKG, the
cool.
echo, some
Come
kind of ocular
on.
device, because now that person can do it remotely without the 45-minute commute time, which is that in itself. And you just made the commute times of every specialist you need to call in
So
overnight go
cool.
away, let alone hire those that are able to get it. You can't imagine just the downstream cost savings that you would see on the entire system,
So
both for
cool.
the hospital but as a whole. Anything else on the radar? I know there's algorithmic optimizations for triaging. There's just, there's so much that can be done.
Yeah. There's two things that come to mind for me. One of which I'm currently trialing. The first time you experience really good tech, it feels like magic. And that's kind of like where
For
I'm at
sure.
with this. So I'll start there. I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. I don't get paid at anything, by these companies. Yeah, basically the biggest thorn in our side as emergency department clinicians is this idea of having to document. It's a 12-hour shift. I'm seeing 35 patients. I'm literally zigzagging, going back and from a pinball, going between rooms. But I got to do this thing for every patient, like write 2 notes, right? I got to write their H&P, the assessment plan note, and then most of them require a procedure. So I got to write a procedure note. So, my 12-hour shift turns into a 14-hour shift because I got to sign those charts. I got to, do the notes, etc. So Ambient AI has been a game changer for me. I won't say the name of the company because I know there's a couple of really, really impressive orgs out there doing this work. But the one that I have, I literally have my phone with the mic up, and I put the phone in my white coat, so the mic is in my pocket, so the mic is out facing the patient. I say to the patient, just so you know, I'm using an ambient documentation system. It's going to be listening to our conversation. It's going to put that in a note so I can really focus on our conversation. Is that okay? Most of them say no problem. I have the conversation. I forget the phone is even in my pocket. I go back to my computer. The note is pristine. It's fantastic. Of course, I go in. I got to do some stuff to it, but that is a game changer. So ambient AI is like a very clear place. I feel bad for the scribes, right? Because we have human scribes. We're probably not going to need a lot more of those.
What happens is the burden is so big, you cut corners. You end up not documenting stuff, or you forget, or you stack it all together. So there's actually a fracture of historical and ultimately data, which is going to
For
feed
sure.
our insights one day. That's actually bad data because
For
it's
sure.
just not possible. So I think there's tangential second and tertiary things that come out of that too.
1000%. And then quite frankly, what's the biggest, I was talking to our CEO of our hospital yesterday. What's the biggest concern in his mind right now? A burned out workforce.
Oh, 1,000%.
A
It's so bad.
demoralized and burned out workforce, not just our hospital, it's every hospital. So if you can do things like this that free up my time, that let me focus on what I want to do, which is actually take care of the patient, wow, that's a big workforce intervention, right? So the second is, a little bit more specific, but you asked, so I'm gonna answer.
Please.
So you're in an ER and you're the attending physician, and a patient rolls in on the stretcher and is at the double doors of the ER. The double doors open. The charge nurse says, "Yeah, go over there. To room 3. Room 3 is open." So the EMS guys and gals are pushing this patient in the stretcher over to room 3. From the time that I see the patient at the double doors to the time that the patient is moved to room 3 and then transferred from the EMS stretcher to the bed, that's the amount of time I have to review this person's chart. Okay? That is the amount of time that I have to know their past medical history, past surgical history, medications, relevant social history, last visits they had in the ER. And look, you get good at it over time, right? I've been doing this now for what is it now? 10 years now. What does it take? Like 4 minutes, 5 minutes for this whole process? But
That's unreal.
I'm like walking with my computer on wheels, and I'm like, searching what's going on in the patient's history. Do you know how many charts I got to look at in that 5 minutes, right? How many discharge summaries I got, how many previous ER visits I got to look at, how many primary care doctor's notes, right? And I'm just quickly going through and trying to absorb as much of the information as possible. A large language model could do that way better than I can.
100%.
A large language could just ingest those notes, right? And just summarize. Say, here, look, here's like the last week of this person's life. Here's the last ER visit they had. And it's one sentence. It's very specific sentences, but they're one sentence summaries. You know what I mean? Because then it's like I caught up. I'm up to speed. But the problem is if we don't do that, if it's up to the human, I might miss something. You know what I mean? And it's very important.
You're going to miss something. Everyone's going to miss something.
Context matters, so we're dealing in a context where literally seconds are what distinguishes whether or not a patient lives or dies. I kind of need to know, this person has HIV. They didn't tell me because they were unconscious. You know what I mean? Like there's a really important, right, piece there, and sometimes not documented in an easy way. So I think that there are these kinds of very, very specific, specialty-specific use cases that you would only really know if you talk to a specialist, when they'd say, "Oh yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing." And so, somebody, hopefully someone's listening to this or watching this podcast, some really smart entrepreneur is just going to like go around each specialty and create a chat GPT wrapper for all of the needs of that specialist, right?
Already kind of happening. I can't say too much, but like, yeah, it's, there are those out there, and you're exactly right. I mean, it's like, and you can customize like what you need to know as an oncologist. I need to know like literally smoking history, family history for germline testing. I need to know, I mean, just everything you could think of. When was the last chemo? Did they have recurrence? Blah, blah. For you as an ER, like I could just immediately think, and it's prompted to where it comes out in seconds.
Right.
How many admissions in the past year? What were the primary diagnoses for reasons for admission? What was the worst metabolic, disturbance seen? And were there any ICU visits? And if so, what? And also like, what meds were actually filled in not on the list, because a lot of times they don't take it. And now you're just reworking everything. They're like, "Oh, I haven't taken that." I'm like, "Well, shoot, there goes everything that had to do with metformin that could be, for your renal failure or whatever." Like to say what was filled in the last 30 days or 60 days, like all of these things, are under works. And I'm so glad you mentioned this one, because the care, again, it's going to be these, secondary and tertiary tangential things that we'll never be able to fully quantify, but just shit's going to get better. Like care is going to get better. The questioning that's peppered 1,000 times that patients hate, including myself as a patient. And I'm like, I just answered this on 3 documents and 2 people since I've been in here, right? All of that goes away.
Right.
And it's unbelievable how much somebody's going to be informed when they come in. So there's a lot, and we could, like you said, talk all day about it.